Despite the lack of fans in stadiums for much of last season and the hit to club coffers that came as a result, the Premier League spending bonanza shows no signs of letting up. There is still over a month left until the summer transfer window slams shut, yet already we have seen a string of clubs delve deep into their pockets in the battle to compete for either the league title or Champions League qualification in particular. Yeah, alright, not them, but others. Chelsea have been the biggest spenders, forking out £130 million on Hakim Ziyech, Timo Werner and Ben Chilwell. Meanwhile, Kai Havertz is expected to join them imminently, taking Chelsea's overall spending in excess of £200 million. Manchester United look set to complete the signing of Dutch midfielder Donny van der Beek for £40 million, and if they are to miss out on £60 million target Jadon Sancho as now looks likely, one suspects they won't just sit on that cash. And who could forget Man City, unerringly quiet this summer by their standards, although they've still paid more than £60 million for Ferran Torres and Nathan Ake, and are currently looking to complete a deal for the greatest footballer to have ever walked the face of the earth, which some completely made up reports have claimed will cost in excess of £500 million in terms of Messi's wages and fee combined. So that's what the rest of the chasing pack are up to, but what about the Premier League champions? Well, things have been a little quieter at Anfield. In fact, in the last 4 transfer windows now, Liverpool have only actually made 2 genuine first-team signings. Takumi Minamino for £7.25 million and Kostas Tsimikas for £11.75 million. It's not a great deal of money. In fact, it's not even a third of what Leeds United have spent this summer alone. What's more, it's not like the Reds haven't had any transfer targets. There were ongoing talks between Liverpool and Timo Werner and concrete interest from the Premier League champions, yet the Germans still ended up signing for Chelsea, who finished closer in terms of points to the relegation zone than Liverpool last season, primarily it would seem, for financial reasons. There are now concerns, at least at the time of this recording, that Liverpool could also miss out on their only other long-time target, Thiago Alcantara, a man who is out of contract in 12 months' time and who has seemed only hours away from signing on the dotted line for weeks, if not months. If that deal were to fall through, real question marks would start to be asked about whether Liverpool were running the risk of being priced out of top-class talent due to their current financial restraints, and already Liverpool fans are wondering what's going on. The club from Anfield won both the Champions League and the Premier League within the space of 12 months, their revenue has skyrocketed, and their far less successful competitors are spending big. As a result, I've seen a number of people asking the question why Liverpool seem to be so reluctant to splash the cash and where their newfound wealth is going, if not on new arrivals. So I decided to put on my detective badge, get digging, and follow the money. But first, because it really wouldn't be a HITC Sevens video without it, and also because this story wouldn't actually make much sense without it, we do need some context and just a very quick history lesson. To the magical history tool. I hope you can all agree that the production values on this channel have gone through the roof recently. I know what you're probably thinking. Have you hired an editor or a producer? Have you entered into a partnership with the Athletic like Tifo? It's a no to both. It's just a case of sheer grit, determination, and never-ending creativity on my part, and you're all very welcome. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already though, because to be honest with you, if anything, I think things could get even better in the coming weeks. Oh, sorry, this was supposed to be the magical history tour, not the magical semi-sarcastic self-adulation and channel plugging tour. Okay, let's cast our minds back to the 2009-10 season, a time when Rafa Benitez was still the Liverpool manager and the Reds were experiencing a pretty bitter comedown, having only missed out on the Premier League title by 4 points in the previous season. As Liverpool faltered on the pitch, off the pitch, they were staring down the barrel of financial abyss. Co-owners Tom Hicks and George Gillett Jr. had loaded the club with debt, owing the Royal Bank of Scotland some £200 million. When the financial crisis hit, the banks wanted their money, and RBS effectively took control of the club. Finding an owner under these circumstances was by no means a given, but American private investor John W. Henry believed he could turn Liverpool's fortunes around. Henry had himself lost rather a lot of money over the last 5 years, as many investors had, with his assets under management having shrunk by 90%. Meanwhile, his net worth was largely being propped up by his successful ownership of the Boston Red Sox, which was valued at around $700 million. Henry was never going to be able to come in and bankroll Liverpool like a Sheikh Mansour or Roman Abramovich, whose yacht collections were probably worth more than Henry's total assets at that time. With the introduction of FFP by UEFA in 2009 though, along with Liverpool's huge global presence, Henry felt he could turn Liverpool into a successful and self-sufficient outfit that could challenge for the major trophies, even up against clubs with far wealthier backers. Following a hard-fought court battle, Henry, through his holding company FSG, was able to take control of Liverpool Football Club in October 2010. Henry flew into Merseyside for his first game as Liverpool owner, a bitter Merseyside derby, but goals from Tim Cahill and Mikel Arteta consigned Roy Hodgson's men to yet another defeat. Hodgson had won just one of his first 8 league games in charge, and the former Fulham boss enraged Liverpool fans by stating that Liverpool are not too big for a relegation battle. He hung on until January, when the owners made the popular decision to get rid of Hodgson and bring in club legend Kenny Dalglish. King Kenny went on a decent run as Liverpool finished 6th, and we also saw our first glimpses of the FSG regime's approach to the transfer market. Liverpool famously sold Fernando Torres and brought in Luis Suarez and Andy Carroll in January 2011, which one could describe as a bit of a mixed bag, but already there appeared to be a focus on younger players. Over the next 4 years, this became something of a theme, as Liverpool signed the likes of an 18-year-old Joe Gomez, 19-year-old Divock Origi, 20-year-old Jordan Henderson, Philippe Coutinho and Emre Can, and the 23-year-old trio of Daniel Sturridge, Danny Ings and Roberto Firmino, among many others. There was clearly progress being made, and Liverpool only narrowly missed out on the Premier League title, having fallen at the final hurdle to Man City in 2013-14. Throughout all of this time, John Henry was true to his word, not extracting any money out of Liverpool, not even in the form of interest-bearing loans, and injecting around a total of £110 million in the form of an interest-free loan in order to fund stadium renovations. That had been one of the promises made to Liverpool fans by the Hicks and Gillett regime that never came to fruition, but under FSG, the stagnation of Anfield's facilities and capacity has been brought to an end. The stadium redevelopment, carried out in 3 phases, cost a total of £260 million. An initial 8,500 seats were added, taking the ground's capacity over 50,000, with plans for a further 4,500 seats, which Liverpool recently applied to add to further, with new proposals which would take the stadium's capacity to in excess of 60,000 by 2022. The redevelopment also saw enhanced corporate and matchday facilities, a new fan zone, and a new club superstore, in addition to £25 million worth of redevelopment to the local area, funded by Liverpool City Council. A quick look at any of Liverpool's accounts for the last 7 years shows that stadium redevelopment has eaten up a large portion of the club's cash. It was in October 2015 though, 5 years on from John W. Henry's arrival, that Liverpool's fortunes were really transformed by the arrival of a charismatic German, a Liverpool baseball cap, and a cheap tracksuit. Since Jurgen Klopp's appointment, Liverpool have only headed in one direction. Liverpool are now a bona fide super club with a team and the results to match their stature. But given their huge commercial and TV revenue, twinned with their bonuses for having finished 4th, 2nd and 1st in each of the last 3 seasons, reaching 2 Champions League finals, winning one of them, and winning both the FIFA Club World Cup and the UEFA Super Cup, it's little wonder that some Liverpool fans, and indeed supporters of other teams, have been left wondering why the Reds appear to be sitting on so much cash, twiddling their thumbs, and potentially letting others steal a march on them in the race for the Premier League title. So where is all that money? Well, thankfully, like all football clubs, Liverpool have to publish their financial accounts every year in accordance with their UEFA club licensing application. And if you're someone as strange as me, who quite enjoys looking into company accounts, they make for pretty interesting reading. Don't get me wrong, it's not quite Plato's Republic, thus spoke Zarathustra, or England's greatest defender, but it's fairly interesting nonetheless. I'm well aware that any talk of finance sends the vast majority of people to sleep though, so I'll try to make the details as concise and compelling as possible. In the last published accounts for the financial year ending May 2019, Liverpool had a turnover of £533 million and pre-tax profits of £41.9 million. It was a record year in terms of revenue, far surpassing the £455 million that the club brought in for the financial year ending May 2018, although profits were significantly less, with the club having brought in pre-tax profits of £125 million in the previous year's accounts. The reason for that dent to Liverpool's bottom line is primarily due to a record investment on players, with the financial year from May 2018 to May 2019 including significant outlays on the likes of Alisson Becker, £65 million, Naby Keita, £52.75 million, and Fabinho, £43.7 million. Liverpool were also less profitable, despite their greatly improved revenue, due to some hefty increases to their wage budget. 6 of Liverpool's most important players, including all of their famed front three and club captain Jordan Henderson, signed new deals during the period on vastly improved terms. Meanwhile, the club also had to pay out a sizable portion of their revenue in both individual and collective bonuses due to their excellent results on the pitch and performances in their two most important competitions. Liverpool's income is broken down into 3 categories: media, commercial and matchday, which were worth £260 million, £188 million and £84 million to the club respectively. The club's expenses are a little bit more complicated, but the major outlays are still pretty easy to break down. Liverpool's largest cash burner is their wage budget, which cost them £309 million between May 2018 and May 2019, once social security and pension contributions are added to the wages and bonuses, which make up the bulk of that figure. It's important to note, since the raw data may seem somewhat meaningless, that Liverpool's wage budget is absolutely enormous. It may or may not surprise you to find out that Liverpool have the 3rd highest wage budget in the Premier League, having had the 2nd highest in the 2017-18 season, and Liverpool's wage budget is almost identical to Manchester City's, which stands at £315 million, and trails Manchester United's by just over £20 million. Given Liverpool's performances this season in relation to other Premier League teams, don't be at all surprised to see Liverpool's wage budget eclipse Manchester City's in the next set of financial accounts for the 2nd time in just 3 seasons. So 58% of Liverpool's turnover goes immediately into paying their coaching staff and players, which is about standard for top-end teams, putting them in a similar bracket to Man City, Barcelona and PSG. A further £111 million was spent during the financial year on player amortisation, which is just a fancy way of saying the gradual process of paying a transfer fee over a certain period of time. That means that between wages and transfer fees, we have accounted for almost 80% of Liverpool's overall revenue. The club are also spending £50 million on a new state-of-the-art training base in Kirby, which will be reflected in both their 2019 and 2020 accounts, in addition to paying off much of their remaining bank debt, which was reduced from £44.8 million to just £12 million in the most recent accounts, meaning Liverpool paid £32.8 million to the banks during the period from May 2018 to May 2019. The end result is just £42 million profit, which is still a strong financial performance given Liverpool's circumstances, which is cut to £33.3 million once HMRC have taken their slice of the pie. As you can see, despite Liverpool's success both on and off the pitch, they have reinvested the vast majority of their income. In terms of Liverpool's net spend over the last 5 seasons, which people often like to look at, the club ranks 4th in the Premier League, having spent significantly less than Manchester United and Manchester City in terms of the amount they have brought in, although still more than Arsenal and far, far more than Tottenham. In total, Liverpool's net spend over the period stands at £337 million. A couple of things that are important to note: Liverpool's 2009 Champions League winnings were not accounted for in their May 2019 accounts, since the Champions League final took place on June 1st, and Liverpool's redevelopment of both their stadium and training facilities are ongoing costs, which will be reflected in future company accounts as well. Ultimately, John Henry bought Liverpool in light of FFP regulations and on the basis that he felt he could make the club sustainable. He has injected over £100 million into the club, primarily to fund redevelopments of Anfield, which he will want back, but isn't subject to any interest. Henry's goal, it would seem, is not to extract cash from Liverpool whilst he owns it, like the Glazers have at Manchester United. A bit like owning a new tech stock, Henry isn't seeking dividends, just growth. His asset, Liverpool FC, has increased in value several times ever since he acquired the club almost a decade ago, just as the Boston Red Sox have since he acquired that franchise in 2002. Henry's windfall will come if or when he sells his sports clubs, rather than whilst he owns them. But for the time being, he isn't going to act as an Abramovich or Mansour-esque sugar daddy. Liverpool will just have to stand on their own 2 feet. The danger, of course, is that by standing still, the Reds lose ground on the chasing pack. Whilst Liverpool waltzed to the Premier League title last season, everyone starts on 0 points at the start of a new campaign, and in their first season, as reigning champions during the Premier League era, they are there to be shot at. Alex Ferguson used to have a mantra that after winning a Premier League title, you don't need wholesale changes, but you do need just 1 or 2 elite players entering the dressing room just to keep everyone on their toes and ensure that you are constantly improving the quality in your squad. Following Manchester United's title win in 2001, Fergie signed Ruud van Nistelrooy. When they won the title in 2002-03, in came a young Cristiano Ronaldo, and following their 2007-08 crown, it was Dimitar Berbatov who was the big name coming through the door. Similarly, Liverpool have a brilliant team with an excellent balance that just needs touch-ups, not a revolution. However, they do need those touch-ups, and right now, Liverpool fans may just be starting to question when they are going to arrive. Thank you all for watching today's video. I sincerely hope you found it entertaining and informative, or at least one of the two. Hit the like button if so, go ahead and subscribe to HITC Sevens, and feel free to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, where the username is just @HITC Sevens on both platforms.